Hi, my name is Sean Gold and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I am excited to be here today. I was invited here today to talk about physical disabilities, discussing the disadvantages we face by the community, the limited services we have provided, and the obstacles we still have to go through just to get approved for the service. My disability is cerebral palsy and I also have a tracheotomy breathing tube. I have my trach because my airway was not open like it should have been when it was born. Due to that, I rely on my breathing tube as my main source of breathing. However, I only consider that to be an ability because it gave me a way to breathe on my own. Living with a physical disability myself has caused some setbacks in my own life and it still does today. Part of the reason as to why it's so difficult is due to the pre-assumptions made by people without disabilities. Now, I know that everyone in the world has some type of disability, but there's still a big difference between someone with less ability to do something versus a disability. Cerebral palsy, or CP for short, affects my movement abilities. The exact diagnosis that I have is mixed athetoid spastic diplegia. The athetoid causes shakiness and the spastic diplegia makes me have spasms at random times throughout my body. This is also why I can't use my left hand as much as I would like, and why I get fatigued faster than an able-bodied person. The cause of cerebral palsy is a brain injury or brain malformation that occurs while the brain is developing before, during, or after birth. As a result of the brain damage during brain development, a child's muscle control, muscle coordination, muscle tone, reflex, posture, and balance can be affected. Everything that I've just listed has had an effect on my body. As a toddler, I was using a walker and now I no longer need one. Let's compare my disability for a moment to someone without it. For someone with my disadvantages, I have to think about how I'm walking with every step I take. How am I standing? Am I walking on my toes? What's the distance that I'll be able to walk until I have my spasms? I get physically tired faster than someone without a disability and I will start slowing down to rest very quickly. Some days sooner than others. Imagine being in my body, one working hand, constant body spasms that never stops, and never knowing when it'll start or end. Or all of a sudden just losing your balance even when sitting down because your spasms decided to malfunction. Yes, I can get so stiff that I feel like this robot only moving inch by inch instead of a steady movement. Disability pride is just as the name suggests, someone who is proud to have their disabilities. Someone who is unashamed, not bothered by, or hides the very thing that makes them stand out in the crowd. It is a celebration for how far we've come, but a reminder that we still have so long to go. I apologize for the cliché, but it's true. Due to advocates like Judy Heumann, James Lebrecht, Denise Scherer Jacobson, and many other people in our community, the ADA was signed into law in July of 1990. Today we are gathered today to celebrate this historic anniversary of getting closer in our fight against ableism. For those who don't know, the definition of ableism is the discrimination or prejudice against people who have disabilities. Ableism can take the form of ideas and assumptions, stereotypes, attitudes and practices, physical barriers in the environment, or larger-scale oppression. It is oftentimes unintentional and most people are completely unaware of the impact of their words or actions. You can easily relate this word to feminism and racism, all based on discrimination. One example is seeing someone like myself holding hands with their significant other, but mistake them as their caregiver. Or how about praising the able-bodied for simply being a hero just because their best friend is in a wheelchair? This also forms the idea that the physically and mentally challenged communities aren't valued to the workforce or everyday life. Which simply isn't true. We can be doctors, lawyers, mothers, fathers, and even the President of the United States if given the opportunity. However, when a disabled person does get the chance to be accepted in society, that shouldn't be inspirational. Why does everything we do turn into inspiration for non-disabled people? Inspiration porn is the portrayal of people with disabilities as being inspirational to able-bodied people, on the basis of their life circumstances. It is one of the leading factors in ableism history. What seems so harmless to walk up to someone and say what you think is a compliment, it's not. First off, you as an able-bodied are only doing it to make yourself feel good about yourself. It has nothing to do with us. While the more known definition is used to sexualize others, inspiration porn is used to dehumanize. It's not inspiring that we go to work or out to eat with friends. Why is it amazing when someone is graduating from high school with a normal diploma? People don't see how it's crazy to praise the able-bodied student for simply being a friend to anyone in a wheelchair. Also, it's never about the disabled person that way. We are automatically someone's charity or community service the moment we're someone else's article about interacting with us, and most of the time the name of the disabled isn't mentioned. This contributes to our job barriers. Disabled people have to work twice as hard to get half the respect in the workforce. Disabled people of color have to work 4 times as hard. For black disabled men it's harder, and for black disabled women it's even worse. I would like to go over some facts about this country and disabled workers. Under legislation of the Fair Labor Standards Act, Section 14C allows employers to pay their disabled workers any amount under the minimum wage. This can literally mean that disabled employees can earn pennies an hour and earn less than $1 on their paychecks. 14C was made legal due to parents of disabled children and adults. The reason is because they wanted their kids to still be able to work and not lose their governmental services because we can't have more than $2,000 to our name. When fighting for the federal $15 minimum wage, it hasn't happened yet due to this law. Until we get to lift the disability restriction laws, there will be no minimum wage increase. Speaking of this pandemic, I have learned a lot about how big of a detachment this country has between different cultures. I'm not only talking about racial, but the distinction between able-bodied people and the disability and chronically ill community. Ever since the news reported that the elderly and disabled people were going to be the most affected, I began to see many protests against the lockdown and disregard everything. If my community needed any more of a validation of how little we are valued in this country, that was it. I find it hilarious that the things that disabled people have been begging for decades to get, you as an able-bodied person got it in 2 weeks in the beginning of the lockdown. Online advocacy is still advocacy. It is still protesting. It is still community organization, effective, and validating. Within the community with Black Lives Matter and the Stop Asian Hate movements, both have connections with the disability community. While most people were outside protesting, disabled people including myself did it through social media. So many people forget the true power of things like Instagram and TikTok. In fact, TikTok has been proven over and over again that it is more than a place for dangerous challenges and silly videos. I've only been on the app for 1 year and I already have 20,000 followers. There's a feature specifically for question and answers where I had people ask all disability-related questions for the month of July. I cross-post on Instagram doing the same thing pretty much. I have made plenty of friends in the disabled and author communities with these 2 apps. Most of my book sales probably came from TikTok. I can say that this app has surprisingly been very useful for my advocacy and public speaking career. Instagram is another great app for disabled people to connect, all social platforms really. I now have a posting layout on my page, and I cross-post my TikTok videos on my Instagram. During the lockdown I was able to meet some of my favorite celebrities, became friends with Vicky Vox, who is a famous drag queen, and I even got a virtual selfie with Loni Love from The Real. Also, Jeannie Mai from The Real watched my TED Talk. The thing is, I don't like it when people disregard online resources as those are the tools that connect us the most. Especially the disabled community. At DASA, which stands for Disabled Athletic Sports Association, I work out with my trainer to help with my strength through their functional fitness program. My goal is tailored specifically for gaining my strength and being in better control of it. I think that's what makes me a little different than someone who doesn't have a physical disability. I have to work harder to find and keep my balance throughout the day with daily activities. This is also a safe place to say that my limitations are taken into account, but we find ways to work around it. Thankfully, this does not cause my trainer to take it any easier on me as they would an able-bodied. Like I've mentioned earlier, I don't want to be treated any different from someone who doesn't have a disability, and DASA does a brilliant job making me feel equal. We need more places like DASA, where disability is overlooked and we focus on the person. What I mean by overlook is we need somewhere that the disability isn't the first thing to notice. The late activist, Stella Young, said it best in her 2011 TED Talk in Sydney. She said, "I want to live in a world where disability is not the exception from the norm. Where a teenager in his or her room watching TV all day is achieving anything because they're sitting down. A world where a student in high school is not surprised that their teacher is in a wheelchair." I remember going to a restaurant with my mother and a couple of friends. We hadn't made it into the building when we were stopped by complete strangers just cheering me on, and telling me I look good. Before I knew the concept of inspiration porn, it was flattering. Now it's annoying because it's saying that people with disabilities are not expected to be out doing normal social activities. However, it's unfair to think in that way because I had a doctor who has cerebral palsy herself. In fact, that's what she specializes in, and it never gets in the way of her providing me nothing less than spot-on care. To me, it's normal to see people like myself as doctors. Yet, what about lawyers, business owners, or even in politics running to be president? This actually reminds me of a yes or no question that my professor in sociology asked one week in class. The question was, are there any cultural symbols that you're unwilling to use or celebrate? My answer was yes but no. I thought about the handicap sign that in my opinion is so poorly designed. It's a stick figure floating above what looks like a sea that's drunk and it fell over. I don't know, maybe my imagination is just a little more interesting than most. I'm not a graphic designer, but even I know it could be better. I'm just saying. My other problem with it is it categorizes every disability as one. Also, let's think about it, with everyone using this one, not so fascinating sign, how can we know how to help this person? What's the proper way to communicate with this person? We won't know, which will be difficult for both sides if it's only the worker and the one handicapped customer. It's just something to think about. All that I've mentioned is a part of the big process that needs to continue to progress into a more inclusive and accessible world. From making every curb have a safe cut allowing access for wheelchairs, to giving someone the same equal opportunity to communicate if they're in the wheelchair and not automatically thinking that their disability is both physical and mental. Having mutual respect that can be just as successful as the able-bodied and not tagging normal daily activities as huge accomplishments. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you listening to me and hopefully learning from me. Yet I'm not trying to be an inspiration every day. People with disabilities are all fighting for the same thing as the rest of the world. For equality and equal opportunities. When this event comes to an end, I want you to be thinking. How can you become an ally or a better ally for accessibility? What are you probably guilty of doing, to which I'm not judging you at all, that's something you need to stop? What are you going to do the next time you encounter someone who is disabled? Are you going to think they won't understand you and feel bad when you realize that they're mentally capable? Or will you do the opposite, thinking that the person will understand you, to only find out that they can't and then talk to the parent or caregiver that they came with? Instead, I am challenging you to focus on the person. Don't get used to talking to the caregiver all the time. It became very annoying that my teacher refused to realize that I would be able to communicate back to him directly. Even if you know your patient can't respond at all, it shouldn't mean that you avoid speaking to them. Who knows if they're really capable or not? If you're an employer, please focus on the resume to determine if the person will be right for the job. When the discussion of the employee's disability needs come into play, that should start once the person is hired, not at the interview. Also, let them come to you. Hear out the accommodations that they are needing, and go from there. Create more accessible areas for wheelchairs, understand what's really inspiring and what's the norm, and try to empathize instead of sympathize with the disability community. Thank you.